Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we'll be talking today is our immune system, the defense mechanism of our body. That's what we are just talking about. And just to brief you about what I just now told, if you just think about the current situation that all of we are facing now, that's the COVID-19 situation, and that kind of all of you gave a lesson how to boost our immune system. We are trying different way how to fight the virus. But just to point it out, how a single, this COVID-19 is a RNA virus, how a single stranded simple RNA virus can give us the trouble to the whole world. That I think you all can now understand. Okay, so let's look at how our body's immune system works. Here in the picture that I am showing, the small cells, round cells, that is actually a particular immune cell. It's called T lymphocytes. That's present in your blood. And if you the big one, that's the cancer cell. If you can recollect some of the earlier class, I was talking about cancer, right? Tumor cell. So you can see once a cell, your body's own cell, become a cancerous stage, a tumor. Just think about it. It actually achieves a completely different type of character, and then it actually targets your body's immune system, then targets them. And here you can see the cells trying to fight such a big cancer cells, but at the end it will not be able to win, so the tumor cell will grow. But at least you can think about your body are equipped, well equipped with a fighting system. That's your immune system. We'll talk much more details about it. So let's look at what are the challenges our body actually faces in day-to-day basis. I'm sure all of you are very much familiar about this. First, look at all the infectious diseases. It can be caused by bacteria, it can be caused by different viruses, it can be fungus, or it can be caused by different protozoa. And you are familiar with many of such known diseases. Okay, so we are constantly exposing. You have to remember there could be n number of such pathogens. We call all of these is a pathogen that can cause the disease. You can think about there could be n number of pathogens that you are exposed every day in your lifetime. But then you think about your body are able to or capable to handle all such things, even any unknown. Today, if you are thinking about COVID-19 as unknown virus, it was not there earlier, but our body are able to fight against that. So any X pathogen, if you are exposed, our body will be able to tackle that at the end. So that's one kind of challenges that we regularly facing. There's another kind of challenges if you look at, it's called autoimmune disorders. So our immune system are fully capable to distinguish self versus non-self. Our own body cells, normal cells, are not usually attacked, not usually targeted by our immune system. But once it changes its character, like I gave you example of cancer cell, it changes character, then only our body's immune system try to think this is not my body's things, this is not self, it's a foreign, so it targets. So in that circumstances, sometimes, and there are many situations, like if you think about autoimmune disorders, in those diseases, sometimes your immune system or our immune system can fight against, fight against the own body's own cells, body's own proteins. In such circumstances, I'll give some example. There could be a disease called autoimmune disease. Then you think about if any component of our immune system get affected, get dysfunctional, get disturbed, then your immune system may not be able to work efficiently. In that case, you might think there could be a problem. And then the best example could be the AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, which is caused by HIV virus. So that virus actually sometime and some way can completely collapse our immune system if you are infected with that virus. So there could be many more such examples. So this is another kind of problem you have. And of course cancer that I just talked and we have talked in earlier classes. So this is just to kind of give a summary of what are the different kind of challenges that our immune system faces continuously. Okay, just to give you some of the infectious disease, this is one of the disease is caused by Staphylococcus aureus. It's a gram-positive bacteria, and I have talked about what is gram-positive and what is gram-negative bacteria. So this is actually, it stays in a clusters. So you can see here grapes-like cluster. That's why it's called Staphylococcus. Staphylococcus aureus, this bacteria, and this is all the bacteria. It lives in our skin. It's there. It normally is there, and it's kind of called opportunistic bacteria. Whenever it gets chance, whenever a small cut or some injury happens, it just goes in and try to propagate there and can cause the problem. And some of the common problem, one of the common problem you can see here, the style that is there in your eyes. I'm sure most of you probably have encountered this some point of the time. So it might be affected, it might be heavy huge swelling, then pus might come, and within 3-4 days you will be fine. Even if you don't take any antibiotic, if you don't put any antibiotic. And if you see there's a much severe case of skin infection, you can see the eruptions coming out in the skin. Hello guys. This is not the time for you to sing here when I'm trying to sing. Anyway, if you are trying to concentrate, or you can leave. So how we can treat this? This is the common antibiotic. I already even talked about that. So you can think about the penicillin to treat this disease, and that can be. But if I put something in line, red line, so this bacteria is now emerging as a superbug, which means there is no antibiotic can really kill this bacteria. So this bacteria now over the time getting resistance for any antibiotic. So that's a serious issue, serious problem. You might often hear in the news article in hospital settings sometimes some disease cannot be treated by different antibiotics, and these are the problem. So this is one of the bacteria can cause serious problem. You will not be able to treat by conventional antibiotic. This is one of the example, and this is completely different kind of example. It's called Clostridium tetani infection, which ultimately leads to tetanus. And I'm sure all of you have taken tetanus vaccine. Okay, so just think about when you injure some part of your body, or there's a small cut, and by maybe say some sharp iron pieces, or some other injuries. Sometimes doctors prescribe to take a tetanus vaccine. So the reasons is, of course, that's the vaccine, tetanus vaccine against tetanus. The reasons how actually this bacteria can cause tetanus is very easy to understand. So in this case, bacteria itself is not causing the problem. The problem is created by a byproduct that is produced by the bacteria. That's called toxin. So bacteria release some protein, toxin, and when that enters, anyway that is there in the body, so that toxin actually causes this problem. In this case, the toxin can travel from your, if it's an injury in your leg, so toxin can from your leg, or even from the bacteria from your leg, it can go, travel, and reach to your brain. And in the brain, it actually affects a specific type of neurons. I have already talked about in the last class. It's called inhibitory neurons. So it actually damages the inhibitory neurons in your brain or in spinal cord, thereby leads to overexcitation. So if your inhibitory neurons are damaged or lost, so the control is not there. Excitatory control will be disturbed. So you have too much of excitation, and that leads to this kind of, these tetanic symptoms. Sometimes you will not be able to even open your mouth. That's why called locked jaw. That's why sometimes the tetanus is called locked jaw, because the muscles are contract in such a strong way that you can't really open your mouth. The relaxation is not there. Muscles just contract and stay in that condition. This is a very terrible disease. Okay, so you already know the neuromuscular nerve muscle junctions. So there will be too much of release of acetylcholine, if you recollect my last class. Okay, so but here point to note that this bacteria which releases a toxin, and the toxin can cause the problem. But if you have a vaccine against the toxin, you have the cure. And we all have taken the tetanus vaccine so that you can prevent the tetanus. Now we got a sense if there is such kind of infections by particular bacteria or virus will be really problematic, but at least you think about bacteria, you have a vaccine against that as a preventive measures. So you should know then by which principle the vaccine can work. So we'll talk about this aspect over the time. Okay, and now we just mentioned about autoimmune disorder, and when your immune system cannot distinguish self versus non-self. Like in some cases, like if you look at some of the autoimmune disorder like rheumatoid arthritis, I'm sure many of you probably have seen many old people sometimes affected with this kind of disorders. The problem of joint, is huge swelling in the joint, hand and legs, and thereby people even sometimes cannot even walk. So in those circumstances, there are particular proteins present in the joint actually change their nature, and thereby your immune system now don't think that is your body cells or body's protein. They realize there's this protein something abnormal. Thereby it attack. So now your self material, because of changing character, become non-self, and therefore your immune system attack those cells and damage. So there's a huge inflammation in those joint areas because immune system now coming there damaging those parts by thinking that this is not my own body cells. Okay, that's how that happens in rheumatoid arthritis. And there's another example is called type 1 diabetes. We all know what is diabetes. So in case of diabetes, your blood sugar level becomes abnormally high. Maybe normal patient, it ranges maximum 110 to 120 milligram per 100 ml blood. But once the level is shoot up, say about 150 or 200 milligram per 100 ml blood, then you will be called diabetic. I'm sure every household, this is very common. I'm sure every household there could be some person who is diabetic. I'm sure all of you must be familiar. But here we are talking about a situation, a particular type of diabetes, where there is your immune system is actually directly involved. It's kind of different kind of diabetes, so type 1 diabetes, where there is a autoimmunity against the insulin producing cell. So in your pancreas, there is a particular type of cell that produces insulin, and insulin try to decrease your blood sugar level. But in this type 1 diabetes, what happens is, since the insulin producing cells are damaged by the attack of your immune cell, your body is no longer able to produce insulin. Therefore, your blood sugar cannot be controlled. So in this case, the patient must need to get outside insulin. So must need insulin shot. Normal drug will not be able to work. Okay, so this is how it is. So type 1 diabetes is caused by the damage of insulin producing cell that is present in the pancreas, and this damaging effect is done by our immune cell, because the immune cell thinks that's not our body's own cell, because they change their character somehow. Okay, so these are some of the examples. So now I gave you the example of all the aspects. What happens in case of infectious disease, what happens in case of autoimmune disease, and even if you think what happens in case of the problem of your defect in your immune system, some component is deficient in your immune system, then you will having that problem. So you have all those challenges. So then you should know how, in spite of having all those challenges, our body is trying to fight. So how it happens? So we'll try to understand. It's too hard subject, but we'll try to understand as simple way as possible to understand how it happens, how our body try to fight. Is anybody having any issues?
Sir, I had a question.
Yes.
So, like, how does the immune system differentiate between the cells of our body and the foreign cells or foreign
Right.
antigens?
So just think about whenever any bacteria enters your body, so your body's immune system realizes that this is foreign. But when in your cell, so you have to understand Yes.
Like
So your body
patriotic
cell
thing.
changes its character. Think about cancer cell. When a normal cell is there in your body, body's immune system don't try to identify, don't attack. But when the cell changes to cancer cell, some of the surface character changes of the cell. So therefore, now your immune system realize this is not my own cell. This is the different cell, so I have to target. The same way, so cell versus non-cell. Even if I'm talking about cell, but in case of rheumatoid arthritis, it is not the cell even some part of the cell, some protein, particular extracellular protein, some matrix protein, some collagen. So those are the actually change its character. It can be multiple ways. Sometimes there could be injury, or sometimes you have taken some drugs and that drug causes the changes of the structure of particular protein. So many ways it can happen. So it takes quite a long time. If you see the rheumatoid arthritis patient, it sometimes patient is suffering with some other disease for a long time. Over the time, this thing happens. But the bottom line is your some of the cells or some of the particular proteins change its character, change its structure. That tells the immune system that you are not normal cell. Therefore, they attack. I hope it's clear. Okay, so now let's look at how these things happen. So we'll be looking a little more details about how different immune cells in our body is trying to work, trying to fight against it. Okay. So before that, just think about the brief history. I'm trying to as short as possible. But I guess why I'm showing this, because I think in many textbook or many storybook, you must have heard this guy, that Edward Jenner, the father is considered father of immunology. So what he noticed, so at some times in European countries, most of the world and all the world countries, actually tough challenge against that smallpox. There's lethal disease. Once you attack with that, have you infected the smallpox? People need to think there is no hope to survive. So during this era, this guy, this Edward Jenner, he noticed that people, the milkmaid, okay, people who does regularly work with the cows and do the milkmaid, take the milk, those people never actually infected with smallpox. That was a surprise for him and some other guys during that time. So then he did some new experiment. What he did actually, so he inoculated that the cow actually infected with cowpox. So that's actually not lethal. It caused some problem, but it actually not having any lethal effect. It don't kill the cow. So what he did, he transferred the cowpox from a cow, inoculated to a human. And then he found that the guy is not infected with the smallpox, which indirectly suggests cowpox is some way protect the smallpox. So if somebody is infected with cowpox, which is absolutely non-lethal, it just has some small maybe eruption, but that guy will be completely protected from the smallpox, which is lethal, deadly. Okay, so that was his dramatic, his discovery, and that time he said that inoculation. So he inoculated cowpox as causing agent to a human, to a human, right? So inoculation. So that's why he gave name that time. It was a vaccination, which is now we all know what is vaccination. It's more popular. Okay, so the term is given by this guy, and you have to remember the vaccination, the VACCA, VACCA, which stands for actually cow, which actually in Greek word is meaning cow. So you can understand what's the meaning of vaccination, because it came from the cowpox. So that's why the name came, but it's going on now. I hope that story should be interesting for all of you. So cowpox protects smallpox. So now you can understand why it can be. So the reason simply is because some of the parts, some of the virus, the pox is caused by the virus, both of the pox is caused by virus, and some part of the virus are highly conserved in both cowpox and smallpox. So therefore, when you inoculate cowpox virus, okay, it is not live, dead virus, then some part is similar. So therefore, it raises antibody in your body, and when the smallpox attacks you, affects you, then your antibody is already there against cowpox. So that will recognize smallpox and can destroy the smallpox virus causing virus. So that's how it will protect. And that's how the principle of your vaccine. So how vaccination, even if you think at this moment we are all going for mass vaccination of COVID-19, so you must be familiar about the basic principle behind vaccination. So in this case, there will be a vaccine against COVID-19. So once you take that, so the body immune cell will raise a defense mechanism against your COVID-19, and when the COVID-19 will infect you, your body already ready for the battle, so you will not have the disease. So it's kind of preventive mechanism. Well, so that's the history, and look at the cowpox. Look at the not cowpox, smallpox story behind it. So you can see smallpox is officially eradicated in 1976. Okay, even I remember when we are child, so I think class 1 or 2, we have been given smallpox vaccine. We have actually all taken smallpox vaccination, but now I guess you guys have not taken this because it's officially eradicated. Okay, same thing will be in case of polio. Polio is now probably officially eradicated. So after few, but polio is still given. But after a few years, it might be, we will stop it once it is officially declared that it is gone. Okay, so this is how it is. So now look at most fundamental aspect. So what we talked about, about immune system, if you think now, whatever the information has been given to you, from there you can conclude some of the few lines, like a complex system that encompasses every organ and every compartment of our bodies. Okay? The objectives you can easily understand is written here clearly: seek, identify, and kill any kind of infection, any kind of pathogen that can enter your body. And it's highly adaptable. Can act against pathogen size ranging from 30 nanometer. So 30 nanometer size means it could be a virus. To 100 centimeter long, a pathogen could be. And you can think about the 100 centimeter long could be a tapeworm. This big worm, long worm. So that can be also targeted by your immune system to remove it. And the last one that we already discussed, the distinguishes between self and foreign, and mount immune response against only foreign while preserving the self. This is one of the hot area of immunology, although you will not be able to cover why our immune system don't recognize the self. This is a big subject in immunology. Why? Okay, so this is called immunological tolerance mechanism. So we will not really able to cover, but that's hot area. But I hope you can understand. These are some of the important points: self versus non-self that our immune system can recognize. Now look at how that can happen. So our immune system generates almost infinite number of cells and substances. This is amazing to think. So our immune system have the capability to generate infinite number of cell and substances to fight against, you can think about, infinite number of pathogens. That means our body is fully ready. No matter whatever pathogen could be, it can be any new pathogen tomorrow somebody make by using artificial whatever genetic engineering method, but our body is ready to take that challenge, if I say it that way. So we will over the time will know how it can produce infinite variety of cells and substances. But at the end, those cells and substance, so substance here you can think about antibody. Cell will talk about the number of cells we'll talk about, and ultimately those cells or substances will try to neutralize or kill those foreign pathogens. I just wrote neutralize the particles because it can be anything. And another interesting point is, at the end of the battle, after fighting with the pathogen, what our immune system does is amazing. It just keeps a memory of that incident. So you can think about, there's a battle between bacteria versus pathogen versus our immune cell. At the end, immune cell wins. Our immune system wins. And at the end, once it wins, it stores a memory of that battle. so that when the second time that virus or bacteria or any pathogen enters, your body is now fully equipped. So you don't have to wait for anything. It will immediately attack. And you will not even feel that you are attacked with second time. Your body automatically clears it. So in the second day exposure, it enhances the massive enhanced response. And that's actually called acquired immunity. We'll talk about details because that's the very important things. Even if you think in case of COVID scenario, this is what you can think about after vaccination. Okay. So now that's called active immunity. But in some time, active immunity because there is a question of memory. So there is a memory generated. But there is a certain scenario when you can have this kind of immunity without having memory. Just think, I'm again giving you an example of COVID-19. If you can recollect, then I'm sure many of you are continuously following the news channel. At some point, people used to try with the serum. If somebody is infected with COVID and cured, so now that person's body will have the antibody against that COVID-19, right? As per standard protocol, principle. So now, if somebody is infected with COVID-19, you can use that serum, that infected person who is cured, that serum and treat this person. This person will be cured in theory. So that's called passive immunity. So in this case, you are treating with only antibody of particular pathogen, against particular pathogen. So that antibody is fighting against those pathogen, but have no capability or they cannot generate the memory cell. So the memory, so that in this case, the things are quite short. Only short duration it works. So that's why it's called passive immunity. So if you separate clearly what is the difference between active immunity versus passive immunity, you can only think with regard to memory. So in case of active immunity, you have a memory, while in case of passive immunity, there is no memory. So I think I can give you another example of passive immunity is in case of snake bite. When someone is attacked with snake, when the snake bites someone, the usual therapy is people use antivenom of the snake. So you can think about, if you recollect last class I talked about king cobra. King cobra snake venom consists a poison that's called alpha bungarotoxin. It's a small protein. And the antivenom could be antibody against that venom, snake venom. So usually snake bite will be treated by using those antivenom. So the antivenom will go, binds with the snake venom and neutralize the snake venom. So that's how it will be cured. But in that case, this can be only work for 2-3 days. This antivenom, okay, and it will neutralize the snake venom. That's it. Job is done. It will not store any memory of that incident. So that's why it's called passive immunity. So I gave you 2 examples of passive immunity, right? Okay, so we will be talking much more details about active immunity. So this is another way you can think or you can classify our immune system, like the immune system or immunity that you got naturally by birth. So that immunity is usually considered as innate immunity, the immunity that you receive by birth. Okay, and there's another form of immunity that's called adaptive immunity. That's the immunity you are acquiring during your day-to-day life, or when you are continuously exposed with different kind of pathogens, you acquire those immunity, protective response. So that's how we can broadly classify your immune system or immunity in 2 different ways. Innate immunity, which is inborn, and you can distinguish between these 2. And acquired immunity is actually acquired during the exposure of different pathogens. And some other difference, like innate immunity response is very, very rapid, while adaptive immunity is slow. It takes time to generate. If you think about innate immunity, it halts infection. It halts. If it is a minor level of infection, it can cure. It's massive infection, it cannot be. So it can halt only, just slow down only. But if you look at adaptive immunity, it can completely clear the infection. Okay, so in case of innate immunity, there is no memory, while adaptive or acquired immunity, there is a memory. So you can understand some of the basic difference between innate versus adaptive or acquired immunity. Okay, so we will talk gradually with these two systems. So
Sir,
now,
hello.
yes,
Can you go to last slide?
yes,
Last to that, last to this.
yes, this one.
Sir, how that degree in 2 degree is quantified?
So 2 degree is quantified based on memory. So I told you, whenever, suppose, I'm just giving you an example. Suppose if you are infected with the typhoid bacteria, typhoid causing bacteria, it's called Salmonella typhi. Usually you in your lifetime you might have only once, unless you have a serious problem of your immune system. So now question is why? So when you are first time infected with typhoid causing bacteria, your body will try to produce antibody against the bacteria and then try to fight. So whatever way it fights. At the end, when you become cured, during the time process, your body makes some memory cell. I will talk about what are those memory cells. There are some cells that will keep the memory of your typhoid causing bacterial antigens, specific memory. Okay, so that's why. So when next time you are infected with the typhoid bacteria again, maybe after 5 or 6 months you are cured, after 5 or 6 months you are again exposed. You are taking some food which is contaminated with the typhoid bacteria, causing bacteria, but you will not know. But it will not cause any disease. Because when the second time you are exposure, like in this case second degree exposure, when you are infected the second time, your body is fully equipped to deal with that. So battle is going on inside your body, but you didn't realize because it don't cause any problem. It don't cause any symptoms. So it can be third degree, it can be fourth degree like that. You can be exposed several times, but it depends from bacteria to bacteria, virus to bacteria. But I'm just giving you an example of typhoid because typhoid usually happens once in your lifetime. Because this bacteria is so conserved, I mean some of the antigenic part is so conserved, it don't change much. But on the other hand, if you look at the flu, any kind of common flu, there will be lots of vaccines. Even if you think about COVID-19 vaccine, so virus actually continuously change their genome, so that different architecture, different proteins will be continuously changing. So today's COVID-19, maybe after a few months, COVID-19 character will be completely different. So therefore, antibody will not really work. But the vaccination against some bacteria are absolutely okay, like smallpox. So they don't change the character much. So therefore, it is highly effective. And typhoid is fine. Typhoid, I think, so far we don't really see. Sometimes you can think some people actually affect. I mean, some people may be infected typhoid with maybe 2-3 times. So there are multiple problems. Your immune system might be having problem, or some other problem could be. But on an average, you can be infected with only once. I hope you got the second degree meaning, right?
Yeah. So, sir, degree is the number of times of
Yes, number
exposure
of
given that
exposure. Yeah, right.
given that the virus doesn't mutate much.
Yes. If is virus mutated, then there is no point. Then nothing
Yeah,
will
got it.
happen. But if it's little mutation, you can think about it. Percentage of mutation, like right now you are thinking about COVID-19, the new strain that is coming, that is quite, I mean, change structure. Maybe 30-40% change of its structure. So vaccine still could be effective. Still could be effective, but maybe after a few months you suddenly see a new strain where this vaccine, whatever the current vaccine, will not be able to work. So this possibility is there over the time. Okay. So what I am trying to give an example, again same similar things I am just giving an example. So here just trying to show you a kind of particular infection duration. You can again think about a typhoid infection. You look at the x-axis is the duration of the infection. So in case of typhoid, you might think about 7-15 days, sometimes you will have to suffer if you don't take any antibiotic. And your y-axis is representing here is the number of pathogens, I mean level of microorganisms. So if you can think here is the level of your Salmonella typhi. Just take example. Just think the day one when you are first maybe infected with typhoid causing bacteria, say some contaminated food, where your bacteria number could be say 100, 200. I can think, you can think just a few numbers, only few, maybe salmonella causing, typhoid causing bacteria is present. But as it enters your body, cross all the barriers, the stomach and other barriers, once it goes to the circulation, it got a nice food, right? Your blood is enriched media. All sorts of nutrition are there, so it can rapidly grow. But at the same time, your body's innate immune system is there. So their surveillance systems are already there. So when they realize there is a foreign cells are entering in your body, say 100, 200 of bacteria, they try to fight. They will obviously try to kill the foreign pathogen, bacteria. They might eliminate completely at this moment. If the number is quite low, few cells, they might totally wiped out. And we will not understand anything. We will not have any problem. And that's actually happening continuously in our body. We only understand when we get a fever or you get a symptoms of the disease. Otherwise, we never bother it. But there are continuous battle going on. So now think about, now at some point, your body's immune cell or innate immunity are not able to deal with the situation. So the bacteria started growing. Initially slower rate because your innate immune system is trying to kill them. But at the end, they are not able to do it. Right, so the bacteria started growing rapidly. Because you have to understand, they are just a geometric progression 1, 2, 4 like this. So unless you kill in early stage, it's hard. Once they cross 1000, 2000 level, his body's immune cell will be few. So they will not be able to deal with so many number of bacterial cells. So at the end, they are trying to, they're trying to do the job or not able to deal with the situation. So at this moment, once it's kind of picking up, you now realize that you have a body, you have a health issues. You went, in case of typhoid, you might start thinking your body ache might start, or you might get suddenly a fever. This is the picking phase. Okay, but at that moment, the body's immune system, like innate immune system, is struggling hard to fight. Okay, so now once this guy's innate immune system cells, we'll talk about more details about this. Just think at this moment, some cells which are involved in innate immune response are not able to deal with the situation. Some of the cells then invite other system in component of adaptive immune system or acquired immune system. So they need help. They are not able to do it, so they now invite others to come into picture. So that's where once the disease in kind of advanced stage of picking phase, they invite adaptive immune system. So at this stage, both innate and adaptive immune system both are fighting the battle. Think about it. And then they try to, so you can say adaptive immune system just picking off, and once they try to handle the situations, you can think the disease burden. So the bacterial load is trying to go down. And at some point, so you see this phase. So if you think typhoid, maybe around 7 days, 8 days, you are now cured. You have no fever. So that's the indication that you are fine. So your pathogens is now clear at this stage. And in this stage, I talked about memory, right? So now there are some cells of your immune system, they keep the memory. So there are some cells which are involved in this battle process. They are now actually stored. So here memory is different. In this memory, and when you talked about in the brain, the memory related to learning and memory, that's different. It's an immunological memory. So some of the cells that are involved in the specific battle process, like in this case, if you think it's a battle against typhoid. So those immune cells, few of them are stored in a specific place for many years. Like it is stored in your spleen, some kind of lymphoid organ, sometimes in a tonsil. So they are actually some lymphocytes. Those are actually immune cells are actually stored. And when the second degree, what I talked about, when the subsequent attack of your typhoid causing bacteria, they are ready sitting there. Immediately they will attack, and you will not have this peak. It will be just finished in early stage, and you will not have any sense that you got infected second time with bacteria causing typhoid. I hope you got this. So typical phases when a bacteria or virus or any pathogen enters in your body, it has to go this kind of cycle. So first, the innate immune system come into picture. Okay, once they sense that they are not able to handle the situation, they invite adaptive immune system people, and both of them try to fight. That's how they're doing, and at the end of the day, they win the battle, because that's how they survive. If you die is gone, but at the end, if your disease is cured, means you win the battle. So in that case, you see disease burden, the level of bacteria, the disease-causing bacteria go down, and that will totally wiped out from the system. And when it's done, you win the battle. Some of the bacteria involved in this process, some of the cells that are involved in this process are actually preserved. It may stay for years after years, 10 years, 20 years. So that's how the vaccination works. Today you have taken, say, you all have taken, I just mentioned, the vaccine for tetanus, right? So it may stay for many, many years. So once you have got again, doctor again tells you to take another shot. So that's kind of booster shot, just to be safe, so that you don't have any, you don't face any problem. But the memory cells are already there for your tetanus, and they'll take care of it. But you have to remember that it's not, it's the way what I mentioned don't happen for every bacteria or every virus. So things can vary from bacteria to bacteria, so the disease to disease. Some vaccines works for a long time. Some vaccines maybe few months, right? So those are some of the things you have to probably remember. But I hope this is clear to you. So let's what happens. Just give you an example. If you think about innate versus adaptive immunity, we just mentioned something here. So innate immunity is very, very crucial than the adaptive immunity when you think about the controlling, when you think about both of their role in controlling the activity, controlling the pathogen level. So here some of the experiments, difficult to explain, but just simply if you think this is an experiment in mice. So if you have a mice where this is the normal mice, you just think the disease profile, disease course in a normal mice, this yellow color. So infected here, here is the disease peaks, reach in peak stage, then disease gradually cured. Now in that mice, the red line shows that if you remove or if you inactivate the innate immune system. Now question is how you can do it. It's a complicated business. So if there are certain proteins, if you knock down on the cell, on the immune cell, your immune system will not be able to do innate work. Innate immune system will not work. So that's how it is. But at this moment, just remember, if your innate immune system don't work, then you can think the level of organisms are reaching a very, very high level quickly. On the other hand, if you inactivate your acquired immune system, things are not that serious compared to your innate immune system. So which tells you that innate immune system, or I wrote line here, losing the innate arm of the immune system results more dangerous outcome than losing acquired arm. Okay, so innate immunity is very, very crucial. Without, in fact, subsequent slide I will show you, without innate immunity, our body cannot generate acquired immunity. Okay, so there is a cooperation between these two guys. Okay, so here again there is some fundamental difference I already talked about, but little more details just now whatever we talked about come to a summary. The difference between innate versus adaptive immunity. The most important thing you have to remember, adaptive immunity has the memory component, while the innate immunity don't have. That's important. Of course, innate immunity works very rapidly, adaptive immunity takes time, and so on. And I just put some new point here, like in case of innate immunity, there are many barriers, like your skin, different kind of cells, and so on. But in case of adaptive immunity, we have the interplay of different kind of immune cell. I just mentioned T and B lymphocytes. We'll be talking more details. Don't have to remember this point at this stage. We'll be seeing here over the time. But I hope understand it's clear the difference between innate and adaptive immunity. Okay. So now we will just give you some of the examples how our innate immune system works. I mentioned you innate immunity we got inborn. So there are many ways innate immune system works, like mechanical, chemical, and biological factors. Let's first look at the mechanical factors. Very easy for you to understand. So you think about skin. Skin itself is a protective barrier, right? When you have injury to your skin, then only some of the bacteria that leaves your skin can goes inside the blood and can cause the problem. But skin can heavily protect our overall body. And think about the mucus. Look at it. Think about your respiratory tract. Whenever you have cough and cold, or whenever you sneeze, why you sneeze? So some of the foreign substance must have gone inside, and body tried to throw out. So you just seen here, flip that. So if foreign substance goes somewhere in the respiratory tract, it immediately thrown out because there are cilia, mucus are there, and they sense that something is coming, so they work in reverse way to throw it out. So this is how your body can be protected against various other outside things. And think about your flushing action of saliva and tears. I think I talked about the different enzymes that presents in your tears, saliva. Is showing here. So chemical factors. The first you think about the pH in your stomach. And that is very, very important. When you eat food, say you might be eating a contaminated food, but doesn't mean that bacteria can really cross your stomach barrier. Because you think in the stomach there is a pH, it's called high acidic pH, it's around 2 in your stomach. When you eat food, when it first reaches to the stomach, the pH of the stomach is around 1, 2. And at that pH, no organism can really survive. Okay, only some bacterial spores can only survive. But sometimes, so if you thousands of bacteria you take, one of them can simply bypass, somehow can goes in. So that's how it happens. So there is a very, very protective barrier in the stomach, HCl, and to cross the barrier, it's not easy. But somebody can do it. But this is a protective barrier. But another thing you can think, when we sweat, like in summertime, when you sweat, your sweat have a lot of antimicrobial peptide that can kill bacteria. Similarly, I mentioned about lysozyme, tears, and saliva. So you know that I think I already talked about the lysozyme that present in our tears or saliva can degrade a cell wall in bacteria. If you can remember the cell wall when I talked about bacterial cell wall structure. Okay, so this is how the various chemical factor can work to protect your body. And that's the last one, the biological factors. So there are many good bacteria. We only talk about the pathogenic bacteria, but you have to think there are many good bacteria that are living in our bodies symbiotically. If you can recollect the first slide I told you. So in our body there could be 10 to the power 12 cells, but more than that, there will be more number of bacteria actually lives in our body, and most of them are, who is doing all these things, most of them are actually symbiotic, but few of them can be pathogenic, causing problem. Similarly, think in your gut, in your intestine, particularly in the large intestine, where several good bacteria lives, and without them you can't think or you can't live. So they are very much essential not only to digest food, they also makes a lot of vitamins and other components that are essential for you to survive. Okay, so then those bacteria make a protective layer in your intestine. So they don't allow any pathogenic bacteria to come inside your body. So you can understand. If you think about your digestive system, first is the stomach, where I mentioned there is a highly acidic pH. So in that pH, most bacteria can be direct. If somebody even escape, so once they come to the large intestine area, so they just cannot enter your body because there is a protective layer of your good bacteria. So they make a thin layer around your gastrointestinal tract. Okay. So therefore, pathogenic bacteria can get a chance to make a colony around. So they have to get out. So therefore, you can understand how different way your innate, they are all actually part of your innate immune system. Somewhere they are protecting you from foreign invaders, foreign pathogens that may cause disease. Okay, so there are multiple ways you can think. Okay. Now, this is a very simple thing that we talked. Now we will talk about little details about the cell, the immune cell that are involved in making your innate immunity. Okay, and all of these cells are actually present in your blood. So this is what it is. If you recollect when I talked about stem cell, so as I first told you, all of the cells that are involved in your innate as well as adaptive immunity, they are all present in your blood, and they are produced in a particular cell types, a pluripotent, if you can remember, pluripotent stem cell. In this case, it's called pluripotent hemopoietic stem cell. So from this pluripotent hemopoietic stem cell, all the different kind of blood cells that you can think are produced. So from this, there will be two major lineages. One is called lymphoid lineage, another is called myeloid lineage. So from the lymphoid lineage, lymphoid means you can understand there will be lymphocyte. So there is a generation of B lymphocytes called B cell and T cell, T lymphocytes. I'm sure you all probably familiar about lymphocyte. So lymphocyte has different types. Here are two different types I am mentioning here: B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes. So a lot of names you have to remember now. Okay, so once they become fully matured, fully functional, B lymphocytes now converted to plasma cell, and this plasma cell can produce antibody. T lymphocytes can mature and form activated T lymphocytes, activated T cell. They can be multiple types. But at this moment, you remember there is a lymphoid progenitor cell which will make B lymphocytes and T lymphocytes, and during the process of maturation, they will form ultimately different kind of lymphocytes, like the plasma cells or activated T cell. On the other hand, if you look at the myeloid progenitor, so from there you will have ultimately generation of macrophages, one of the very, very important cell that took part in innate immunity. They just eat. They just eat like anything. Any foreign pathogen enters, they just engulf. So macrophage, one of them. And another cell is called dendritic cell. Why they are called dendritic? Now you can guess, because they have a branching, like neuronal branching, dendron. That's why they are called dendritic cell. This is also an important cell that took part in innate immune response. Of course, other cells like your erythrocytes and platelet, they are also produced from myeloid progenitor. So I hope you got a sense of all the cells that are present in your body. There are cells called neutrophil, eosinophil, basophil, they are all there. Even you see there is a mast cell. This is another cell plays important role in your allergic reaction. We will not talk about it. But I hope you understand there are at least few cells you have to remember. One cell is called B cell, B lymphocyte, that is ultimately produces antibody. Once it converted to plasma cell, they produces antibody. T lymphocytes play a very, very important role in immune response. You will see it all the time. And then you remember this macrophage and the dendritic cell. So at least these four type of cell you have to remember. Now the subsequent lectures, subsequent slides, you will see the role of these guys. Okay, B cell, T cell, macrophage, and dendritic cell. There are four different cells you have to remember. It's very, very important in innate as well as acquired immune system. So these are the cells I already just now mentioned. At least two you guys you can remember. These are the big eaters: macrophage and dendritic cells, along with neutrophil. So these cells. So just think about when your body is exposed with any kind of bacteria or virus, they are just sitting there to eat them. This neutrophil, the macrophage, and dendritic cell. Whenever they get chance, they expose those bacteria or virus, they are just ready to attack and kill them. So this is called big eaters, always hungry. Ready, they are always ready and steady position. Whenever anything comes, foreign thing comes, they just finish it. That's how they work. That's how the innate immune system cell works. So there you can think about these are the cell plays essential role in innate immune system. Okay. Let's give you a small example. So we talked about various barriers, right? Various barrier that is essential for immune response. Now just think if there is a breach of the barrier, or you can simply think if you have an injury, cut in your hand or leg, in your skin, just showing here. So once there is a small cut, there are opportunistic pathogens like Staphylococcus aureus, just now I mentioned. They can quickly goes in, come inside, even can come close in contact with your blood. And here, just under the skin, there are dendritic cell and macrophages just sitting there. Once this bacteria goes in, so you can see this guy is just sitting and eating them. You can see here pictures. They will just finish it everything, depending on how many are entering at a time. Okay? Simple calculation. But once there is a breach and too many of bacteria just goes in and try to multiply, what happens we all know. So there is an injury and there is a swelling, there is a pus. You can I just showing here a picture like this, something like this. This is not really a cut. This is maybe a small injury. Something happens and you have this white pus inside. But when there is a cut, small cut, you can also have redness and swelling, and you have a very painful situation there. You all face that. So what happens in that case? So once there is a breach, I told you there are tons of probably bacteria just enters there and they try to multiply. On the other hand, the immune cell, the cell that are responsible for innate immune response, they recognize something is here, so you have to fight. So they just comes. So from various other places, they come in the same and concentrate there and try to fight. So there are many things can go on in that place. One is called vasodilation. So that leads to increase in the blood volume in that area, so that many more cells can come in. Increase the permeability of the blood vessels, so that many more molecules can come in. Many more different kind of nutrient or other proteins, other markers can come in. There are many proteins can come and play a different role, and ultimately leads to a situation that called inflammation. This is one of the important terminology in biology, especially in immunology. It's called inflammation, which is marked by redness. At least you know that there is a place, that place will be red, will be swelled, and of course you have a pain. So this three is the classic sign, but you don't really feel heat. You don't understand, but that area become also hot. The localized area become very hot, not very hot, little bit warmer than rest of the part of your body. So these are the four important signs of an inflammation, and I'm sure all of us have experienced this. Okay, at the end, the area is very localized. It don't really spread anywhere, and after sometimes it will be cured. Okay, so that's how it happens. So in normal circumstances, everything is fine, but once there is cut, breach of the barrier, then this kind of situation comes, and ultimately your innate immune response are able to deal with the situation and clear the problem. Okay, it can be anything. It can be any kind of skin disease you can think. Same situation can happen. So now we are gradually moving. So we just discussed about the innate immune response, right? At the end, we talked about different immune cells that took part in innate immune response. So what are those cells? Three major cells that you can think about. One of them is macrophage. Second one is the dendritic cell, and third one is your neutrophil. The three. If you at least can remember two major cells, dendritic cell and macrophage. These are the big eaters, main immune cell responsible for innate immunity. That was clear. So now, as I mentioned you, once they are not able to deal with the situation, just think, I already mentioned. So once bacteria's numbers or virus numbers are rapidly increasing, and your cell of the innate immune systems are not able to handle the situation, they invite adaptive immune response component, or the cell that are involved in adaptive immune response. So this is the stage. So how that happen? Okay, so there are cells which actually help in the transition from innate to adaptive. And who are the cell can be? I just mentioned about them: macrophage and dendritic cell. So these are the two cells primarily responsible for immunity. But once they understand they are not able to deal with the situation, they kind of invite others. Others means they invite the other cell that are responsible for acquired immune system or adaptive immune system. So they are the players involved in transition from innate to adaptive, macrophage and dendritic cell. Now I wrote something. This is the most complicated business. It will be difficult, very difficult for me to explain, even for you to understand how that can happen, how they can invite. Okay, so if I try to explain in a simplistic way, that's why I wrote the sentence here. So just think, bacteria enters, and this guy, I told you they are the big eaters. So they take it, they eat it, they digest the bacteria. So once the bacteria goes inside the macrophage, they engulf the bacteria. They inside the macrophage, they chop small pieces this bacteria. Therefore, they kill the bacteria. That's the normal circumstances. This dendritic cell can do the same job. But when the load is too much, right? When they realize they are not able to deal, maybe there are hundreds of macrophages, there could be thousands of bacteria. They are overtaking the situation. In that circumstances, what this cell do is, they now all those digested or undigested the bacterial part, right? Undigested or digested some of the bacterial part, they actually present outside of their cell. Some of the undigested bacterial protein, they just present outside their cell surface and roaming. They are the cells roaming around the blood, different parts of the body, and they are trying to tell others, if I say in simplistic term, that please help us. I am not able to do it. Just showing outside the bacterial, unprocessed bacterial part, undigested or partially digested bacterial protein on their surface, just running from top to bottom, your head to maybe toe, running here and there and telling, please help. We are not able to deal with the situation. Okay, so that means they are trying to get help from acquired or adaptive immune cells. So that's how they do it. So they use a particular protein, surface protein called MHC. It's called major histocompatibility complex. So these are the protein stage in the surface of this macrophage or dendritic cell. And in between, so there's a complex of MSC and your process antigen that will be in the surface of the cell. I'll show much cleaner picture later. But at least you understand how the transition can take place. And now you call these two cells, they have different name. Now you can call these two cells are antigen presenting cell. Why we call them antigen presenting cell? Because they process the bacteria or whatever virus it is, antigen you can think about, that unprocessed protein they put in the surface. So they present it, they show it, so that others can be coming to help. That's why they are called antigen presenting cell. These big eaters now have a different name, antigen presenting cell. And how they present? With the help of major histocompatibility complex protein, which is there in the surface. It's too difficult job, but I hope you understand a little bit about it. Okay, so there these two are the helping the transition stage. Now you are coming full phase, adaptive immune response. So who are there? So we can think about these two are there already. We talked about dendritic cell and the macrophage. They are there. They are already part of innate immune system, and they are helping to invite others to come into play. So they are also a part of adaptive immune system. And in addition to that, we have another cell that's called B cell. We have talked about the B cell. So these three cells are actually collectively called now professional antigen presenting cell. So all three cells has the capability to present the processed antigen outside their cell surface. You can see the picture here. If you look at the macrophage here. So this one is the MSC2. Now I'm telling from MSC to MSC2. Earlier I just told them on MSC. Now I'm telling it MSC2. Then in between you can think it is a round one. That's the processed antigen. If you see here also. So this red one is the MSC, and in between circle one is the processed antigen. So that's how this MSC is actually presenting the antigen on the surface of these cells. Not only macrophage, it can be dendritic cell. You can see here. It can be also T cells. I hope that is clear. So they are called professional antigen presenting cell. If you are not able to remember, you can think about they can be called professional killers. You can think about the way they work. They are very much professional to kill the foreign invaders, right? Any foreign pathogen, bacteria, virus, anything. So they are very much equipped, well equipped, so very professional to their job. Okay, so this obviously the term is very much appropriate to here. Now there is another things. I'm going a little bit much more details. I just mentioned here the MSC2, which means there also could be MSC1. Yes, there is also MSC1. So now how you can identify these cell types, or how you can tell that who are the professional antigen presenting cell? I just mentioned dendritic cell, macrophage, and B cell. How can you recognize them? They are professional. There are ways you can recognize them. So one of them you can think about here. All three cell has MSC2. This is their identifying mark, or this is the identity card. So all these professional antigen presenting cell must have MSC2. That's one criteria. And second criteria is, this is not second criteria actually, this is the only criteria you can think. Other criteria like what I talked about MSC1. MSC1 can be present, not can be, is present in all the cells in our body. So you can think in except red blood cells. So you can say all the nucleated cells, all the cell where you have a nucleus, they have MSC1. Which means these cells also have MSC1. They are nucleated cells. But they have extra MSC2. That's why they are called antigen presenting cell. I hope that's clear. So MSC1, if I briefly summarize, the MSC1 is present in all cells of our body except red blood cells which don't have nucleus. On the other hand, dendritic cell, macrophage, and B lymphocyte, these three cells have MSC2 on their surface, and that's why these three cells are called professional antigen presenting cell. I hope that's clear. Now look at, I told you this guy now invite others of adaptive immune system. Who they actually invite? Right? Come back to the situation. So I am just telling the dendritic cell, macrophage. You just think these two cells, they are not able to handle the load of the pathogen, bacterial number. So they try to invite the cells that are involved in adaptive immune response. So who are they? They invite, and how they invite. So who are they are mentioned here? At least two cells I am mentioning here. They are two different T lymphocytes or T cells. So they now invite two different T lymphocytes to help. So that means these two cells are the part of adaptive immune response. Is it clear? So who they invite if I ask? So they invite helper T cell and cytotoxic T cell. There are two different cells. How can you identify these two cells? They are all T lymphocytes. You can see T cell. T cells means T lymphocyte. B cells means B lymphocytes. They are all lymphocytes. Now question is, how can you distinguish these two different cells? They are all T cells. One group is called helper T cell, another is called cytotoxic T cell. How can you distinguish? You can distinguish by again some surface marker that is called, one is called CD4. So the helper T cell has CD4 marker, cytotoxic T cell has CD8 marker. It's getting tough, complicated. But this is how you can recognize two different helper T cell. Let's do two different T cell. Helper T cell you can identify based on CD4 marker. Cytotoxic T cell you can identify based on CD8 marker. Other than this marker, both T cell has T cell receptor. You can see T cell receptor, and I wrote something here. This T cell receptor binds with MHC2, or this T cell receptor present in cytotoxic T cell binds with MHC1. But now we just forget about MHC1. But if you look at the helper T cell, it has CD4 receptor and it has also D cell receptor. So CD4 receptor now is the CD4 and T cell receptor that binds to MHC2. Now you can think who they invite, you can understand, but how they invite, now you can get a clue. Just think about this macrophage. So this macrophage, when it's not able to handle the situation, it invite helper T cell. Okay, that's right. And how? So this is the arm. This is the arm, the T cell receptor. I mentioned T cell receptor binds with MHC2. So this arm, T cell receptor will go and binds with this part. So this red, you can understand here, will go and binds with this guy and form a bridge. So now you can see a macrophage is forming complex with helper T cell by using T cell receptor and MHC2 bound with antigen. This bound with process antigen. I hope that's clear. So I'll show you some bridging how it happens. So this is just to think about what I told you. So this is the macrophage which has MHC2 and the red one is the processed antigen, peptide antigen here. And this is the T cell receptor. So this is the helper T cell. So that's how it forms a bridge. And once it forms such kind of complex, this complex or close association actually do a lot of job. It's very, very tough job. So one way it does actually helper T cell now activate macrophage. Once this cross things happen, bridging happens, now this T helper cell releases a lot of molecule that causes macrophage to become very, very aggressive. Or think about macrophage become very, very angry, and it takes a very, very amoeboid shape. And at this stage, macrophage may be 10-100 times more powerful than its earlier stage. So it now becomes so aggressive. Whenever it sees some bacteria, it just can kill instantly. This is one thing it does. So T helper cell now helps the macrophage to superactivate. That's one thing with regard to macrophage. On the other hand, this activated macrophage also releases some molecule that helps in the T helper cell to proliferate and mature. It's very difficult, right? So this guy macrophage now release some molecule. I'm not talking about who are the molecules. There are lots of molecules, different molecules are released by these guys, and that helps to proliferate. You have to understand proliferate means multiply. This specific T cell, group of T cell to multiply, and also helps to mature. So that's clear. The same thing happens when you think in case of B lymphocyte. I just didn't talk about B lymphocyte. If you think about this is a professional antigen presenting cell which has MHC2. But other than that, it has also a B cell receptor. You have to remember this B cell is actually produces antibody. That's the humoral part. This antibody releases in your blood, and that's how it protects your another way to your body. Somehow it can neutralize the foreign invaders, neutralize the foreign particle. Okay, so B cell surface has typical the receptor. That's nothing but a antibody. We'll talk about the detailed structure about this. But remember, B cell surface has MHC2. Along with that, it has also another surface marker called B cell receptor, and B cell receptor is nothing but antibody molecule. Don't get confused. B cell receptor is nothing but an antibody, and it's sometimes released from this. They are in bound condition, but it can be released to your blood, okay, in soluble form. So now let's look at the same thing happens. So here is a bridging between B cell and helper T cell. Okay, this is not the transition state. I'm talking about not transition state. I told you the macrophage and dendritic cells are involved in transition from innate to acquired. Okay, so and I explained you how it happens. But B cell is not involved in transition. It is already a part of adaptive immune cell. Okay, immune response. So what is that? So once this B cell is forming a bridge or complex with T helper cell. Same thing here, the same way. So in that case, T helper cell again release some molecule that can activate B cell, and can multiply. It's called clonal proliferation. So specific types of B cell can be produced in this case. And same way, B cell can help T cell to also mature. So both way it works. So both actually help each other and releases number of molecules for their activity and function. I hope it's too complicated, but I hope basics is clear. This part, I think the most complicated part. Now think about who are the T cells and B cells, where they actually stored and where they produce. Already we talked about they are in the blood. They are in the blood. They are produced from pluripotent hemopoietic stem cell. But where are those cells are there? So those are actually there in the bone marrow. Inside in your bone, inside the bone, there is a very spongy things. It's called marrow, where actually all those blood-forming stem cells are there, and they are making continuously all those different kind of blood cells, including your B cell, T cell, and so on. But question is why T cell and why B cell? B cell, you might simply think because it's produced in bone marrow. That's not the reason. Of course, they are produced both B cell and T cell. They are produced from the bone marrow. All blood cells are produced from the bone marrow. B cell name came because this is first actually discovered in bursa of Fabricus in bars. Difficult to remember probably. So it actually discovered first in a particular organ in bars. The organ name is called bursa fabricus. That's why the B came. While T cell name came because T cells are actually matured in the thymus. It's a particular organ that is just on the top of our heart. It's a very small, tiny organ that's called thymus. So once the T cells, immature T cells are produced to come to the blood, they goes to this thymus and mature. What maturation means? I hope I don't know whether you understand or not. So maturation means here actually all those surface marker. If you look at the T cell, different kind of surface marker, those are the things actually happening in your thymus. So one of the things, but a lot of other things can happen. Even clonal proliferation can also happen this kind of sites. Okay, so T cells. So just think only in B cell and T cell. So both B cell and T cells are produced in the bone marrow, released in the blood. Once they are circulated in the blood, the T cell, immature T cells, now goes and stuck in the thymus where it matures, indicating it has a lot of surface proteins or marker are there. Okay. On the other hand, the B cell is actually matured in different parts, different lymphoid organs that is there in different parts of your body, as well as including your tonsil. And that's a great example. Wow. I'll come back shortly. Tonsil as well as in your spleen. You can see spleen just below your heart, some small tiny organ. It's actually a little longer. Okay, so that's where your B lymphocytes are mature. Means here surface marker proliferation actually taking place in these places. Now just come back to the tonsil, because I think that's a great example you can think. Whenever you are infected with cold, you catch cold or such kind of, mostly flu. or some kind of bacterial infection, sometimes you understand that your tonsil becomes swell, very painful. You know, here is the tonsil yours, and sometimes you get painful, and doctor sometimes watch by putting some torch inside, open your mouth, and he looks at how enlarged the tonsil is. But at least you feel that there is huge pain and swelling. So that is the indication, simple indication, that you are infected with some foreign pathogen. This tonsil swells and enlarge, indicating a lot of B lymphocytes. Now there is proliferated. That particular pathogen specific B lymphocytes is actually multiplying and maturing there to fight against that pathogen that you received. And that's a nice thing. And that's and everybody must have encountered your tonsil some point, swells or painful, and why it happens. And it's just for sometimes, and sometimes it's prolonged. Which prolonged means you might be lingering your infection for prolonged time. That's the indication. Okay, so I hope it's clear about T lymphocytes and B lymphocytes. So I'll maybe finish another 10-15 minutes. So this is the things I already mentioned. And so what are the cellular component involved adaptive immune response? You can see the dendritic cell, macrophage, T cell, B cell, we already pointed out, and their surface marker. All we have talked about it. So this is just a text for your understanding, for your study purpose. And even this mechanism also I explained, but I'll try to do once more so that things become a little bit clear. So how adaptive immune system really works. So I already mentioned there are two different kind of T cells are there. One is called T helper cell. Think about this case where there is a CD4 marker. So you can identify a T helper cell based on CD4 marker. On the other hand, a cytotoxic T cell based on CD8 marker. Okay. Now think this side, cytotoxic T cell. Okay, so once your cell is infected with the virus, the virus is the intracellular pathogen. So virus cannot multiply outside the cell; it has to multiply inside the cell, right? Because virus don't have life, so it's an obligatory, right, parasite. So it can only multiply once it's inside the cell. So now you think it can go inside any cell, and I told you, all cells of our body except red blood cell has the MHC1, right? Including your professional antigen presenting cell. They have both MHC1 and MHC2. So now you can think any virus infected cell which has MHC1 in their surface, so that can present the antigen, and thereby a cytotoxic T cell can be recognized by those MHC1 bound with processed antigen. I hope that's clear. Okay, so in that case, so once the bridging is taking place, or once a cytotoxic T cell is recognized by virus infected cell, or another way, once a virus infected cell invited cytotoxic T cell to form a bridge by using MHC1 and T cell receptor, and in between there is processed antigen, then the cytotoxic T cell, by name you can understand, they release some molecule that can kill the virus infected cell. Okay, I will show here. Picture is clear, I think here. Just think this picture. Same thing I just mentioned here. So this is a virus infected cell. So virus will multiply inside the cell. Okay. Now your cell, you can think macrophage or any cell. So this cell will try to chop up this virus and clear it. But at some point, what it will do is, it will just, some part of the virus or virus is just present outside the cell surface, and this is the MSC molecule on the surface of the MSC. So this is the MSC bound, your processed viral antigen, just coming outside the cell. And at this stage, this is recognized by your cytotoxic T cell. Right? T cell receptor is there. So there is a bridging formation, and this T cytotoxic now release some molecule that is a toxic molecule that can kill your virus infected cell. So now you can understand. So here actually you lose a cell, your own cell. Virus you lose along with your own cell. That's the problem. So I think the best way probably is T cell, recombinant T cell things. The best way to remove the virus is to kill the everything. Because if you can kill this whole cell, the virus anyway virus will not be able to survive outside. Okay, so this is how the cytotoxic T cell plays important role when it forms a bridge with process antigen bound with MHC1 that is present in any nucleated cell. Now think the other side, the helper T cell. So in this case, helper T cell required MHC2. If you think in case of B cell, right? So in B cell surface, there is a B cell surface marker that's called immunoglobulin. It's called B cell receptor. I mentioned it's a B cell receptor, which is nothing but an immunoglobulin molecule. Other than that, B cell also has MHC2, and that can be loaded with processed antigen. And in that case, helper T cell will be recognized, right? To see this picture, next picture here. Right, this one. This is more complicated, but you can think this picture the same thing. So in this case, it is macrophage, but you can think this could be a B cell. So B cell will be activated, and at the end, B cell will produces antibody, lots of antibody, and that will help to neutralize the pathogen. Okay, so this is how your adaptive immune system can help to tackle the situation, to clear out the pathogens. So this part is clear. So I will just give you an example about it can happen in case of MHC2 also. So sorry, in case of your macrophages. So this is, you can think about a bacterial infection. The bacteria is eaten by macrophages. At the end, it try to process, and some of the unprocessed antigen it try to present outside along with MHC2. In this case, it's MHC2. Right, so you can see here MHC2 bound with processed antigen is the macrophage. That complex is recognized by helper T cell, and this is the T cell receptor. Right. So now in this case, helper T cell release some molecule that can activate. I already mentioned that can activate, super activate macrophage, and this stage macrophage become very aggressive, try to kill as many as bacteria could do. Okay, and I also mentioned. This activated microglia also release some molecule that can help to proliferate the same types of T helper cell, or also try to differentiate. So it's a vice versa. So that's why actually here you can put arrow in both sides. Clear. So only problem, little bit difference when you think about antigen presentation in helper T cell. Look at in case of when you think about B cell, same thing can happen. If you look at the surface structure of the B cell, so this is the antibodies, Y-shaped, and also you have a MHC2. You can see here in this place, MHC2 bound with processed antigen. Okay. Sorry, I told the wrong thing. So B cell, so you have a B cell receptor bound with, this is the B cell receptor bound with your that bound with processed antigen. Help us. I confused totally. Right. So you think about B cell receptor, that will is nothing but your antibody, and other than that, it also has a receptor that will bounce. I think initially I told the right thing. MHC2 bound with the processed antigen. So that complex formation will ultimately help B cell to proliferate and produces more and more antibody. So there is proliferations and clonal proliferation or clonal expansion, and produces more and more antibody. At the same time, this B cell also releases some molecule that helps to activate also T cell. If you think carefully, you have no problem to understand. So initially confused. So that's how it happens. So in this case, you can understand once a B cell get activated, it ultimately converted to a plasma cell. You can see here my name is mentioned. It's nothing but a B cell, only the mature B cell. So mature B cell can be called plasma cell. So at this stage, they can produce antibody, and antibody can be released in your blood. You can soluble molecules. At the same time, what I told you is that at the end of the event or at the end of the battle fighting, some of the memory B cell, you can see here, same thing can happen in case of T cell. Some of the memory B cell that are involved in this process could be stored in the spleen or in a lymphoid organ. Even can be stored in the tonsils. Okay, for subsequent fighting with the same pathogen. Okay, so when you do the vaccination also, same thing can happen. So some of the memory cell for the particular vaccine, whatever you are taking vaccine against, if you take corona, then their particular type of memory cells will be stored in your body, in different parts of your body. And when you are attacked with the subsequent pathogen, same pathogen, they will try to clear those pathogens. This is how actually it works. So now let's look at a few more slides. This is the structure of your immunoglobulin or antibody, which is also present in the surface of your B cells. So the B cell surface receptor is called immunoglobulin. How it looks, you can see simply Y-shaped. It's a Y-shaped molecule, and you look at this VH region or VL region. So there are regions which is called variable regions, both sides, Y end of both sides, and the bottom part, that's the part is called constant region. So now you can understand from the name why they are called variable regions. So these regions actually continuously change. I mean, you can ask how. So there is a continuous recombination happens. So there is a continuous in the genetic. I mean, if you think about the gene, because they are protein, right? So they have a gene. So the particular gene actually expresses this protein. So in that gene, there are 3 different parts called VDJ. You have to remember. I'm just telling you to explain something. So there is a continuous mutation happening, a continuous change happening in this region. That's why it's called variable region. And what's the implication of that change? So I told you our body has the capability, our immune system has the capability to produce infinite number of substances. So one of the substances you can think about antibody. So our body has the capability to produce antibody against any foreign pathogen. How can that happen? So that's the reasons. So this variable region continuously changes and can accommodate any kind of antigen. Okay. So you can think if there is 100, I don't know how many amino acids constitute this area. If you think about say 100 amino acids and if they rearrange different ways, you can think about how many different types of sequence can be there. So that is one of the regions. It's called antibody diversity. Okay. And somebody got Nobel Prize to discover that VDJ recombination. If you are interested, you can go for details. But this is how the sequence change randomly. That's why it's a variable region, and that's where your antigen binds. Okay, so if you think when the bacteria enters your body, there will be a lot of different kind of antigen that is there in your bacteria. So they will be bound in these regions. Okay, this is how the structure of antibody is. And this is just to show the difference between antibody versus antigen. I don't think it's difficult for you to understand. So one more or 2 slides. So you already got the sense about vaccination. I don't think I have to give details about this, about how vaccination works. But just to think about, if you try to compare drug versus vaccines, how can you distinguish? You can already understand the difference between drug and vaccine. So drug can kill immediately, can cure the disease. But on the other hand, you can think vaccines is a preventive measure. So if you have a vaccination, you are protected. It is protected from the disease, the specific disease against whom you have taken the vaccine. So it is much more advantageous. You really don't have to suffer. Okay. So that's the complete difference between drug versus vaccines, and you know the principle behind vaccinations. If you can think about memory part of your, if you think about how the acquired immune response actually generated, if you can think about it, then you can easily understand what's the principle behind the vaccination. Just to make a memory, there are some memory cells against those particular pathogens will be stored in your body, and when the particular pathogen will enter, then your body has the capability to fight. You can take an example of corona. If you take today corona vaccines, there could be 2 doses, I guess, first dose and second dose. So second dose is usually called the booster dose. So when you take a first dose, what will happen? So body will ready, your immune system will be getting ready to make what do you call this? Is antibody as well as acquired immune response. Hello, I'm almost done. Acquired immune response against your corona, right? And it will be taking, will be preparing some of the memory cells against your virus, coronavirus. And then hello. When you take a subsequent booster dose, that will help to boost the system, and there will be lots of memory cell against that particular coronavirus stored in your body. And when you are infected with that coronavirus, then you will not really have the disease, because your body already equipped with the system, so they will immediately tackle the situation. But your problem is the virus are rapidly changing its characters. It's RNA virus, so virus is rapidly changing its genetic sequence, because it has to also survive, right? So it has also evolutionary aspect. So over the time it will change its sequence, and the vaccine will not work. And if you look at the history of any kind of viral disease, think about the flus. The viral, vaccines really don't work for longer time. It's just for short time. So probably same thing is going to happen in case of corona. So we have to live with this. That's the best way to adjust is to, what I'll say, to boost up your immunity. And just last few lines I'm just talking about, you have to expose. I think from the biological point of view, if we can think, as a young guy you are, so I'm not telling that you go and get infected with that, but I think the best thing is to fight, is to expose yourself, and let's body build up immunity. And that's how we can get it, and that's how we are actually immune to any kind of disease that we are exposed. I mean, if you look at a country like us, I mean, if you consider third world country, we are so much of immunity against any kind of pathogen. You can't think about European or other countries. So in that sense, we have much better immune system. We are much better equipped, or in other way, you can think our immune system are much better equipped to handle this kind of situation compared to the Western countries. And you can easily understand the lethality. If you think the death rate of this infected virus, in India it's little impact actually it made. If you think the death rate, it is I think people are dying many more in the road accident compared to the death you see because of corona. So you don't have to worry, I don't have to fear about this. Okay? Get vaccinated, definitely you should get vaccination, but you have to think that vaccination may not work for a longer time. Okay? But that can help some extent. Some protection you will get, 30-40% protection. That will be good for you. Okay, so I'll end it here. So this is my last class probably, and I already put the slide. So any questions? I have few minutes, so anybody can ask. I didn't give any gap. So any questions? Please ask me. Or I'll skip. 15 presenters. Do you have any questions? Anybody can respond, or I will close.
Sir,
Go ahead.
you mentioned about sir, you mentioned about plasma donation for fighting against COVID-19.
Right,
But
right.
sir, nowadays nobody is talking about the plasma donation.
Right.
Why, sir?
Right, because it's not effective. But I told in principle that should work. That should generate a passive immunity. Particularly people who are older. So just if an old person is getting infected with, say, coronavirus, then if you put plasma of an infected person, which will have the antibody, it will neutralize, right? So it will just give a short protection. But it didn't probably work. But it doesn't mean that the people are not trying. I think people are still trying. I think in India, many places, people are still testing with plasma. But I think that a lot of hurdles are there. First of all, the donors. There are many donors maybe now available, but that's another hurdle. But even giving to the patient is also another hurdle, because you have to think how people can accept it. A lot of problem might come. Although this is a plasma, so the graft rejection may not be that, is not there, but still it might raise a lot of other immune reaction. But if you look at the initial news, some of the news, I think in the early stage, people are saying that there's a good effect. But yes, you are right, you don't see that news. I mean, things are not that effective probably. Probably it not works. Another way you can think. But that's another way to think. And it happens in many other diseases. Here in Iowa, we are giving an example of corona, but the passive immunity works in many other cases. Any other?
Sir?
Yes, yes.
So the dendritic cells and macrophage, all of them are called antigen presenting cells. So why are they called so exactly? Like you showed the differences between antigen and antibodies, but I couldn't understand that slide.
Because antigen presenting cell, because they present the antigen on their cell surface. If I come to here, because they present the antigen outside their surface. Just think, in normal circumstances, when they actually try to kill the bacteria, because macrophage is the big eaters that I told you. When the bacteria enters your body, they will first go and try to eat them. And problem comes when the number is more. When the bacteria's number is getting more and more, because they are rapidly multiplying. On the other hand, macrophage number is low, so they are not able to deal. They are not able to kill all the bacteria. So in that circumstance, they actually present the antigens. If you look at this here, that this round one, that's a processed antigen. So whatever the antigen was processed inside the cell, so that is now presented outside. Okay, so that's why it's called antigen presenting cell. So they are presenting the antigen, their surface, to invite the other player to come and help. That's the purpose. I hope that's clear. All three cells are the same thing. Yes.
So antigen is that which was actually fighting initially when there was no bridge.
No, antigen is not fighting. Cell is fighting. The macrophage is fighting. So macrophage is eating the bacteria.
But you told that antigen is which was processed inside initially.
Yes. So what?
Sir, you are not audible.
The voice is low, sir.
I hope I actually explained clearly. If you see my recorded voice, maybe recording, then you will be see clear. Is that now a little bit better? Not
yes, sir. Now you are audible.
So what happens is, once this macrophage is trying killing the bacteria, it's already killing the bacteria. But in the killing process, there are small fragments of the bacteria. So that part is actually they are presenting outside. Small little part of the killed bacteria that presented outside, so that the other can come and help. It is killing. It is trying its best, whatever way it can kill and wipe out the bacteria. But when it senses, it actually senses very early stage. When it senses that I am not going to handle the situation, that time it just somehow the undigested or digested bacterial part, put it outside, present outside. That's why it's called presenting cell. And by looking at outside surface, is outside. So somehow the cell will be attracted, and you saw various T cell, T helper and T cell cytotoxic, these two cells will be attracted, and they come and help by multiple ways.
Yes, sir. I understood. Thank you.
Any other?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, next week we will be having our test, right?
There is another class left, right? Your next week is, let me.
Sir, I think we have 3 more classes left.
Yes, yes, next week is the test. Next week is the test. And then you have a last class, probably genetic engineering.
Okay, so sir, the test which we will have next week, it will be MCQ, right?
Yeah, all MCQ.
And
And
like
the
the
chapter, and all the chapters
syllabus,
that we taught. Whatever
yeah.
we taught this time. So your
So
cell
after the
biology.
first test, right? All the
Uh,
chapters which we are taught.
yes, whatever chapter we taught. So cell biology,
Okay.
developmental biology, and neurobiology, and this immunology. Not the old one. That's good
Okay.
thing. Is it okay? I can close? I guess.
Yes, I think.
Sir,
Okay,
I
sir.
have,
Sir.
Yeah, somebody is having something. Somebody want to ask something?
yes, sir. Sir, like I had read somewhere that vaccines are like very less efficient in a large population like India, like only 30 to 40% efficacy is there. So why is that?
I think that depends on, it don't depends on India. It depends on probably the kind of vaccine you have. So I think don't get rumors, all those, these are all rumors. Sometimes you see the Covaxin is not good and some people are not taking the vaccine. Sometimes people say that the foreign vaccine was better. So these are all, so at all something is there that depends on the vaccine. The company's
No, but
vaccine. Because, yeah, tell me.
like, sir, I mean, if I'm taking a vaccine, like,
Hmm.
why is there a chance that the vaccine will not work?
That I explained to you. Because the virus is continuously changing its character. Okay? Because now you know there is a new strain. Now you know that there is already new strain of corona. So that strain and vaccine may not work against the strain. When the people made the vaccine, they made the vaccine against the old strain. Now that vaccine, the virus is changing its character, right? So in that case, vaccine may not recognize. But don't get afraid. If it is not recognized, at least it will recognize few percent, 20-30%. If it recognizes, I think that is enough. If you think your body is capable to deal with the situation, now you think you have extra advantage of 20% to deal with the situation, I think that is enough. That is going to be enough for you to don't get afraid. And I don't know whether any of you have ever is attacked with the corona, is infected with corona. Any of you? Probably. At least I am already suffered. So probably during October, all of my family actually infected with corona in IIT Kharagpur campus itself, and just takes 3-4 days for me. I got a high fever first day, second day, then it's just gone. Actually, I didn't have any problem. Okay, so don't get you guys are young. You guys lots don't have any problem. So don't get afraid. If it's an old person is there in the family, then you have to little take care because they might be more susceptible, or people who might be undergoing some therapy like cancer therapy, or people who have, so you know, that high blood pressure or blood sugar, they have to take little care. Otherwise, you young guys don't worry at all. Why you should worry about this? Don't worry. Okay. I think you will be invited to the campus shortly. I don't know, but probably next semester you will be in the campus. Already there are many people now. I can see. I can see in Tech Market there are a lot of students. So things probably getting normalized, but again there are places again problem happens. But I hope things will be okay. We hope to see you in the campus shortly. Okay. So take it.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So I think we can stop.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
कोई रिकॉर्डिंग बंद कर सकता है क्या, जो प्रेजेंटर में है?
Please, someone can stop the recording if therein is a presenter. Actually, I started the recording, but now someone changed me to attendee, so I cannot stop the recording.